Scheduled for the most part. This is not a debate. This is a strictly ask a question and give an answer. Each of you at the beginning will be given 1.5 minutes to introduce yourselves to the panelists. The panelists are going to ask a question that's not too long and not too complicated. The question will be either directed towards a candidate, and the candidate will have 1 minute to answer that question, or the question will be directed towards both candidates, and it will be mostly a yes or no question to both of you. So with that, let me turn my timer on. Okay, Mr. Wolfson, you have 1.5 minutes for your introduction.
Well, thank you, Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Anthony, and thank you to Veterans in Politics for giving me this opportunity to hopefully earn your endorsement. I'm Steve Wolfson. I'm the current district attorney. As many of you probably know, I was appointed to this position about 25 months ago when my predecessor resigned, and I've been serving as the district attorney for about 25 months. I think I'm doing a good job. I can talk about a lot of things that I've been involved with, some of the changes I've made, some of the things that some of the things I'm working on, and I look forward to a meaningful discussion this afternoon. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Duensing.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, folks, for inviting me. Sorry about the mix-up on the confirmations here, but thanks for the last-minute addition here. My name is Jim Duensing. I've been an attorney here in town since 2002, or actually 2005. Moved here in 2002. I now run a nonprofit called Americans Against Pretend Offenses. I'm running for district attorney largely so that things like what happened to Stanley Gibson don't happen again. I'm running so that somebody somewhere holds Metro accountable. I'm running so that somebody somewhere will step in when the federal government decides they're going to violate one more of our rights. That's why I'm running. And a large part of the day-to-day operation of the office, should I be elected, will be shifted towards public safety and away from revenue generation enhancement kind of violations. Non-violent, victimless crimes, which really, for the most part, are going to fail the constitutional test because of our guarantee in our local constitution, the Nevada Constitution, about the rights of personal conscience. And so I would focus not on people drinking a beer on Fremont Street, not on people not wearing a seatbelt in the HOV lane, but on people who are committing actual violent crime. If you commit actual violence, or you actually steal from people, you will not get a plea deal. You will get a trial.
Thank you. Lisa, let's start with you.
Okay. This is a question for Mr. Wilson. When you were sworn into office, you had promised that you would take a new look at the coroner's inquest. Since 1999, there have been 378 OIS shootings and 147 fatalities. Since you've been in office, you've rendered 32 memorandums of decision or report on use of force. All findings for police officers have been justified. I think that's with the citizens of this community. It's probably the biggest issue is why is that they're all justified. So I was hoping today you could share with us a situation and try to be specific when a police officer would not be found justified. What has to take place, or what is it, from the legal standpoint, where we would find an officer who killed a citizen actually not justified? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question, Lisa. Can you all hear me? Is that okay? As you know, the process changed from being a coroner's inquest to what is now called a police fatality review hearing. And that is a new way that our county commissioners decided for our community to review officer-involved use of force death cases. We've had 6 or 7 of those police fatality review hearings, and I think they're going as well as can be expected. It's not a perfect process, but it's extremely open and transparent. I think that most of the families who have lost a loved one learn about the circumstances surrounding why their loved one lost their life on a particular day. As far as when police officers should be held accountable, I will tell you that my office reviews every single police officer use of force resulting in death cases. Those cases are submitted over to us. We have to wait for the file to come over to us. It takes about 2 or 3 months. And then once that file comes to my office, one of my senior prosecutors is assigned to do the initial review. Once that initial review is done, then we staff the case.
Thanks, Steve. I have to cut you off.
That's it.
That's 1 minute.
Please, I'd be glad to talk to you later. I mean, you can't do that in a minute and a half. And I'm sorry I didn't get
There's only one.
I didn't get to your answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, Robert.
I just want to start by thanking Mr. Wilson for his support of the Veterans Court and doing an outstanding job there. And I want to point out for everybody here that there have been, since this program started, 0 suicides from veterans involved in the Veterans Court process. And that's partly because of your support and of our support and Steve Stanson's support. And I wanted to find out from you how we can expand that, because there is a suicide problem with veterans, and we're seeing that people getting involved in veterans being brought into the process is saving lives.
I have a minute and a half.
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. The short answer is, when I took office, the district attorney's office was not in any of the specialty courts. My predecessor, for whatever reason, chose to remove his lawyers from the specialty courts. I thought that was a mistake. Shortly after I took office, I put our lawyers back in the specialty courts, including the veterans courts. We primarily have 3 judges that do the veterans courts: Judge Bell on the district court level, Judge Kephart at the justice. I thought it wasn't at the justice court level, and then we have the judge out in Henderson. To answer your question, more funding would allow us to expand the number of people that we can accept into veterans court. But it's an excellent court. I actually have a veteran who's a chief deputy district attorney, Jim Miller, who represents the district attorney's office before Judge Bell. I'm very proud of that court. A lot of people work very hard to get veterans the services they need. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Steve. Jameson.
Good day, gentlemen. This question will be toward Mr. Wilson. I looked at your campaign page on the internet. It said when you came into office for Mr. Rogers, your top priority was diversifying your staff as well as community outreach and education, that type of thing. Well, what have you done specifically towards your staff in making sure that prosecutors that have been there before the shift are not overly leaning towards what some would call low-hanging fruit, which is oftentimes our veterans and minorities?
I'm going to try and answer your question, Jameson, if I understood it. I did make a pledge to diversify the office, and I've done that. I can show you statistics where not just the lawyers, but the staff persons were represented by a certain percentage of people of color. And I've increased those percentages on all levels. I want a person, whether it be an African American or Latino or an Asian person, when they walk in the courtroom, I don't want them seeing all white people, including the DA's office. So we've increased the numbers of persons, both at the attorney level and at the staff level, to get more African Americans. I just hired, I'm very proud, my new assistant director over HR. After 80 people applied, I hired an African American gentleman. He's the former chief of staff to Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto, who's coming over. Not because he's an African American man, but because he's a qualified African American gentleman.
Thank you. William.
Thank you. This is also to Mr. Wilson. In regards to veterans court, we find veterans that find themselves in the legal system as they have access to veterans court. However, in the family support division, many veterans on fixed or no income at all due to their disabilities, illnesses, or injuries, or that are struggling with the increased unemployment that veterans often face after service, find themselves being labeled deadbeat, threatened with jail time, suspensions, and fines because of their inability to meet court orders. This strips away their dignity, it causes depressions, it does continue with the suicide rates in veterans. Do you support these tactics against our veterans that are in the family court system, and what can be done about it?
William, I don't think a veteran is treated any differently down in the family support division of my office. I don't like the term deadbeat dad. I prefer the term non-custodial parent, who for a number of reasons can't pay child support. But I'm unaware of any case where a veteran has been singled out or treated any differently because he or she's a veteran for not paying child support. If you're aware of that, you bring it to my attention.
If I could clarify that, not singled out as a veteran, but the veterans that are disabled, that do have the inability to go out and work and don't have the ability to maintain the court orders, the support orders, whether they're joint custody or non-custodial. In the family support division, going after the veterans that cannot, and what I'm saying is the Veterans Court is in place on the other side of the law, where they're afforded certain options, but in the family support division, they're not.
Well, what I know about the Family Support Division, and it's one of my most effective divisions. They've won 2 national awards in the last year for being the most improved division in the country. You know, I don't care whether it's a veteran or anybody, that division is willing to work with people. If they have a desire to make support payments, that division will work with these folks. They'll put them on a payment plan. They'll work with them. So I'm not aware of a case where harsh tactics have been taken because a person isn't willing to work with the division.
Thank you.
The person that avoids the division and avoids all responsibility, yeah, the family support division will get a little bit firmer with them.
Zachary.
Lastly,
Duensing.
Mr. Duensing, what measures are going to be taken by your office to ensure that the deterrence of police brutality and wrongful execution?
I would set up a hotline, first and foremost.
Why don't you speak right on that?
Thank you. I would set up a hotline to allow members of the public to make comments on how they were treated with an officer, because obviously, if an officer is treating you poorly, that's not the time to make a complaint. And then I would look into those, and I would look into every officer involved shooting through my office, and also with a grand jury, a real grand jury, informed of all the facts, and fully informed of their rights and responsibilities. And in doing that, some people who use excessive force and kill people, like I can't imagine there wouldn't be multiple charges coming out of Stanley Gibson's murder. He was an unarmed veteran suffering from PTSD out of the First Gulf War, and I don't have time to go into all the details of the case, but I've looked at it a lot. I've asked questions that weren't allowed to be asked at that new coroner's inquest process, whatever they call it. I can imagine there will be multiple charges coming out of that one alone, and that would set the stage so that maybe when officers are involved with members of the public, they look at it as if there's a standard they have to uphold that's being the law.
Thank you. Melody.
Thank you, gentlemen, Thank you, gentlemen. My question is directed to Mr. Wolfson. I am aware of Document Corporation's service that has done record sealing for many, many years and helped people so that they can improve their qualities of lives and get better jobs through record sealing. And under your predecessor, they did not have very many difficulties getting that done. However, under your administration, it has become almost impossible to assist these people in getting that done. Can you address that?
The record sealing process has been plagued with problems for 20 years. Most of the problems have been the delay in getting the paperwork processed. The paperwork comes to the DA's office, then it goes over to Metro. Metro has to basically sign off, and then it comes back to the DA's office. About 6 months ago, I was reminded reminded, I'm sorry to say, that it was taking about 6 months to get the petitions turned around. Well, as of about a week ago, it's now taking 30 days. Melody, if you submit a petition stiff and order over to the DA's office, we have to review it. And if it's from a document preparation company, we have to rely that the documents are prepared accurately.
Right.
If they're not prepared accurately, they get kicked back. But if they're prepared accurately and the person is eligible to have their record sealed, and that's a whole discussion
I understand.
of another few minutes, the turnaround time now is about 30 days. I took one of my grand jury clerks who used to work in record sealings and assigned her basically 20 hours a week about a month ago to bring us up to date. And I'm very proud it's about a 30-day time period now.
Thank you. Pamela.
My question is to Steve Wilson. So I understand that you have a reentry program, and you talk about mistakes and how people deserve a second chance. And normally, definitely, I agree with that as well. But depending on the crime, more specifically a violent crime or, sexual crimes, I especially have a big heart for children that go through, horrible crimes and sexual crimes. How do you address the reentry program, when it comes to sex offenders, child molesters, rapists, that kind of thing?
When you talk, Pamela, about my reentry program, are you talking about John Ponder's Hope for Prisoners program?
Okay.
Okay, because that's not
Thanks
my
for
program.
clarifying. Okay.
That's somebody else's program that I agreed to come and attend graduations about once a month if I can make it. It's a great program because it really does aid people in re-entry back into society. And I do believe in second chances and sometimes third chances. People that commit crimes and are punished oftentimes go to prison. But they deserve an opportunity when they've been rehabilitated, theoretically, to come back into society and to be given a chance. Now, there are some people that commit very violent offenses that should spend longer times in prison and maybe not get out at all, and I can give you examples of that. But I do believe, I make mistakes every day, and I tell the people at the reentry program that we all make mistakes and that we all deserve second chances. So that's why I'm very proud of John Ponder's reentry program.
Thank you. Jay.
Steve, this question is for you. I want to go touch on the child support division again. And I know that it's one of the departments that's underneath you. You have a lot of things on your plate, so you're not micromanaging every day. So maybe some of the things you're not aware of, so just being fair, wanted to bring your attention of some of the things I've heard and some things I'm aware of. For example, a correction officer that after his paycheck is completely depleted from child support, he probably has about $400 to take care of him and his wife and his family. Another example, you have joint custody. They both have joint custody, but one parent makes more than the other parent. So that parent that makes more is listed as a non-custodial with the child support division. But they have physical and legal joint custody.
Okay, we're getting a little short on time.
Okay.
So could you get to the question?
Would you be willing to look at some of these things where it seems to be unfair, or also where they're not going to, maybe not going to the court to establish or look at the child support, the amount that is being put upon one parent versus the other, instead of just bypassing the court, which is some examples too, that you can bypass the court and just send the garnish to the wages.
Jay, I'm always willing to look at anything. If something is not operating efficiently, I'm willing to take a look at it. We must separate what happens down in family court, where a family court judge enters orders of support, and then the family support division of the DA's office. But to answer your question directly, if there's some miscarriage of justice or something that's happening wrong, bring it to my attention. I have a literal open door policy. I will sit down with anybody. Lisa, you and I have had our differences the last year and a half. If you want to come in and talk to me, let's sit down and talk. So if you have issues, Jay, that you'd like to come and talk to me, call my assistant Tess, get on my calendar, come in and talk to me.
Thank you. George.
Yeah, my question would be for Jim Duensing. If you were to be elected if there was room for improvement, what would that be in your eyes? If there's room to improve upon the DA's, what they do for either child support divisions, anything, what would you see the improvement to be?
To me, the main areas of improvement are going to be a shift in focus towards violent crime, towards property crimes, away from victimless revenue enhancement crimes. I'm not, to be honest with you, very familiar with what the family services and the DA's office, how all that works together. I do know that generally speaking, I'd like to keep that as a civil matter and not going through the criminal prosecutor's office at all. But to the extent the program's already in place, the thing you're talking about, if there's somebody who's legally treated one way, but well, the computer says we deal with it this way, that would have, I don't know what change would take place, but I would do something to make those changes with an eye towards, frankly, getting my office as much out of the process and out between families and those judgments as possible, and focus more on violent crime, property crime, and whatever other color of law issues the office might be forced to deal with.
Thank you. Okay, Travis, you get the final question.
Really?
You're right, and then we'll take
All right.
a 3-minute break.
Mr. Wolfson, tell us what you know about the interdiction program that's being conducted on Interstate 50 north of Apex.
Well, I can tell you about the Hideout program, which is the high-intensity drug trafficking program, which is a multi-agency task force.
From the Fusion Center?
Well, I'm not sure if I know what you're talking about, so to be perfectly honest. I mean,
I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The 15 corridor is a major corridor for drug trafficking, but the multi-agency coordination is just that. And they target drug traffickers, and they're very successful in making arrests and prosecutions of drug traffickers.
Okay, so they're paramilitary officers, and I've seen them in their military armaments and their uniforms, are stopping people without probable cause on Interstate 15.
If that happens, the case should be thrown out.
And do you have statistics on the number of stops made and the number of arrests resulting from those stops?
No, because I'm unaware. If it's happening, Travis, come on in, let's talk about it.
Well, I'm just saying.
If it's happening, come on in, and let's talk about it.
Okay, Karen will be at.
No, okay, let her finish, I'll do it.
What?
Okay, Karen will be asking the last question.
Did George have a question?
He went.
Oh.
You will be the last question.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here today. My question is for Mr. Duensing. Could you tell us about the current case you have before the district attorney right now?
Well, the district attorney has a case against me for getting shot in the back by one of Metro's officers.
Can you expand on that? Or
I'm not sure how much I should, except that I know it's 5+ years, and there's still basic evidence. It took them a year to find a witness. It took them a year to give me a witness statement that the RJ found within 24 hours. So, and there's still a bunch of things we're trying to get from the office. So I don't want to say a whole lot about it, but it's not been, if it's representative of how everybody else is treated.
have you been notified of charges against you?
There's currently 3 outstanding.
What are the charges?
There's 3 felony charges.
What are they?
Resisting with a weapon, concealed weapon charge, and one charge is a Chinese smorgasbord of offenses. It's like illegal.
Is that a legal term?
Yeah, it's written up as felony possession, but my only criminal issues with the law before this were.
Can you tell us about how long ago you were actually given these charges, notified of these charges?
October 29th, 2009 is when I was shot, and then in February there was, I won't go so far as to call it a real grand jury, but there was a procedure held that was put forward as a grand jury procedure.
Okay,
Charges came out of that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, our candidates for part-time.